Welcome back to Everyday Economics, a podcast that helps you learn about the economic world happening around you every day. I'm your host, Chris Krug, president of the 501c3 nonprofit Franklin News Foundation. Everyday Economics is a production of America's Talking Network. You can check out all our great podcasts at americastalking.com. To support podcasts such as this one, please make your tax-deductible charitable contribution by clicking the link in the show description. We are recording this episode on Tuesday, December 20th, and joining me is my partner, Dr. Orphe Divounguy. He's a PhD economist. Dr. O, last episode, we talked about the things that we called right in 2022. I think it's only fair that we talk about the things that we maybe didn't get so right in 2022. Economically, I'll go first. And this is the big one, okay? This is on me. I really thought that the economy would be a far bigger issue in the midterms than it turned out to be for American voters. And it wasn't. It wasn't. Social issues trumped economic issues, which is why you didn't see the red wave that was forecasted. It's fascinating to me. I still don't completely understand it. Possibly simply a rebuke of Donald Trump endorsed candidates. But I truly felt that economics were going to be a deciding factor, or at the very least, a highly contributing factor into the outcome of the 2022 midterms. And that just did not come true. So that was my miss, okay? But I'm going to ask you a question. So what did you not get right in terms of economic thinking or economic theory or anything to do with the economy in 2022?
Yes, no, that's right. I mean, the one thing that I think I may have missed and that I'm still not so sure about is the size of the housing unit deficit in America. Like, how big is it really? You know, I took it for granted. I was like, you know what? There is a housing unit deficit, but saying there is a housing unit deficit is basically saying that builders are leaving money on the table. Like, why is it that residential housing starts that are historically very responsive to changes in demand for housing, all of a sudden, builders stop building? Why would that happen? Why did that happen? I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Why did builders stop building after the global financial crisis? If there was huge demand for housing, right? If there's a ton of demand for housing, well, the price of housing really should increase. There should be all these extra profits on the table. Why is it that builders didn't build?
Well, I mean, I think on that level, I think there were some shocks to supply chain. And I think some of the in motion pricing around, things such as lumber.
Yeah, no,
in particular.
But Chris, let's talk about even before the pandemic. Let's talk about 2012, 2013, 2014, right? You know, I don't understand that. I don't get it. Were builders leaving money on? If there was a bunch of housing demand out there, why would builders leave money on the table? That to me doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm still trying to reconcile that. So I start to ask myself the question, how big is the housing unit deficit really? You know, especially when you have, declining labor force participation for the last 20 years. We had a jobless recovery after the global financial crisis. And then you have less household formation. Right? And some people might say, well, maybe there's less household formation because there's not enough units to go around. My point is that maybe we're overestimating the number of people who can actually afford housing today.
That would be my argument. And that's the argument that I've made to you whenever you and I have talked about this.
It could just be that builders can't build any cheaper.
Some of these numbers, Orphe, are just bananas. I mean, what a new home costs.
Yeah,
it's just, when you look at it, who can afford this? I mean, it makes me wonder. I saw a statistic this last week that if you make $100,000 a year, that you are technically in the top 1% of earners in the United States. If you make $80,000 a year in total income, that you're in the top 3%. So you start looking at homes that are $500,000 and up.
Can't afford them.
It's a tough pull.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a really, really, really tough pull.
And that's right. And that makes me really, it goes back to, look, there is a ton of housing need, but because building costs are so high, builders can't build for those people. They can't build for where the demand is, to meet that demand. They just can't do it.
I think you've answered your own question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really going to go into the data, because I think that's one of the things I got wrong at the start of the year. I was just saying to myself, look, there's a housing unit deficit. It's all over the news. A bunch of smart people have already done their homework and gone into the data. But I can't square it, and I need to go into the data and check it out for myself.
I think it's important for all of us to do that. I mean, we have the best, like the best notions. And frankly, I mean, when we take a look at data, sometimes we get it right. The vast majority of times, I think you get it right. If you got that one wrong, hey, it wasn't for a lack of study, wasn't for a lack of consideration. It just didn't align. What are you going to do?
Learn from that, right? Like, okay, maybe I shouldn't just be listening to what everybody else is talking about. Maybe I got to go and do that homework, look at the data myself.
That's right. Well, we're going to call it there. For Orphe Divounguy, this has been Chris Krug. Subscribe to Everyday Economics and dozens of other quality podcasts at americastalking.com.